I did want to ask you guys this about the situation in New England because, look, the Patriots were in the mix for DeAndre Hopkins. He decided to go with the Tennessee Titans. And there's been some speculation, and this has been talked about over the past couple of weeks, and Ben Volen of the Boston Globe even threw this out there, that Mac Jones and his relationship with the Crafts is a lot closer than a lot of people realized, and that there's some people close to Bill Belichick who feel like, or friends of Bill Belichick who feel like he could be on the hot seat. So here's another big-time addition that the Patriots could have had that they did not land. Dalvin Cook is still out there. He's been rumored to go to New England. Juju Smith-Schuster, there's some reports out of camp that he isn't healthy from last year. Maybe that's why they were kicking the tires on DeAndre Hopkins. It just feels like things are heading in a south direction in a hurry for the Patriots. And it just brings up the question again, how much longer is Belichick going to be the guy there?
It's interesting because I keep asking you guys, is he on the hot seat? Is he finally on the hot seat this year? Does his hot seat even become a hot seat this year? Or is he still immune? Is he still sitting on a glacier?
Warm.
I think one of y'all said he was sitting on a glacier.
It was probably me just because I feel like it's hard to imagine a world where arguably the greatest head coach of all time, and maybe he is clearly the greatest, however you want to look at it, but let's just put him up there where he belongs, the Mount Rushmore of coaches in the NFL, and look at the fact they were an 8-9 football team last year. Despite the fact that, Mac Jones was out for a little bit, despite the fact that, and maybe this is some of his own doing, he had a first-time play caller, Matt Patricia on offense, not defense, offense. And that led to awful situational execution. I mean, that singular decision. They were one of the worst teams on third down. They were the worst team in the red zone. And defensively, they're in the bottom half of the league in both categories. So literally, everyone was impacted by how their offense didn't execute on third down and red zone, which is really, as we know, those are the money downs or situations. Third down, red zone are the two biggest situations that you practice, that you rep, that you are most concerned about your game plan going in, week out. And so if they make a minor improvement, the two things I think we can all agree upon is they got better this offseason, I think, with their roster. Between some of their draft picks, between if Juju is healthy, I think he helps add to that passing core. But they got better. Christian Gonzalez is going to be an immediate starter impact player at cornerback. I really thought he was the most NFL-ready cornerback in this draft class. That's who they spent their first-round pick on, right? Keyshawn Bouette out of LSU could have the type of upside and ability that I think he's a legitimate contributor if he's anything close to what his a talent at least was back at LSU. But think about that. When you comb through their schedule last season, you see some times where if they just did a little bit here, a little bit there, maybe a different outcome of that game. But situationally, if they just improve in red zone and third down a little bit, I'm not saying even be a top 10 team. I'm saying be in the top half of the league. They go from an 8-9 team to what? Maybe something a little better? I mean, the hard part is obviously the division around them has gotten better.
Yeah.
But I still, it's Bill Belichick, man. It's still the New England Patriots. This is going to be a well-coached football team. I thought last year was just an outlier in what has been a pretty ridiculous run for Bill Belichick during his time in New England.
I don't disagree with any of that, what you said, but let's just say for the sake of saying, hypothetically speaking, they're not a playoff team this year. Is it a hot seat situation?
Yeah.
Oh man,
which sucks, but
I mean, I don't see it that way. I think because of what Bill Belichick has done, it'll never be a hot seat because the ultimate decision maker is going to be Bill Belichick. They will give him the grace of letting him step down when he wants to step down. That's how I would handle it if I was the Kraft family or Robert Kraft. That's how I think it's going to be handled. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I think he's accomplished enough there where you would think that they would at least have the decency to say, we're okay going through a couple of down years to let Bill Belichick, decide when he wants to say, I'm done.
Is Mac Jones their quarterback? Like, is he you think long term? That's because in that division, it seems like there's a significant gap between Mac Jones, and that could be just last year with the coordinator call and the injury and stuff he dealt with. But
they did add Bill O'Brien. This is Bill O'Brien's first year, right?
So I just wonder if Bill O'Brien is really maybe the make or break of the Mac Jones / Bill Belichick era in New England. Like that this much is relying on.
All I know before Q, you answer that. This is what I know. If an owner comes out and publicly says that he wants his team competing for Super Bowls and being in the playoffs, and your team isn't in Super Bowls and isn't in the playoffs, I almost feel like you're letting the public know you're testing, engaging, you're at least putting it out there for the consumption that this is what our standard is. This is my standard for our team. And once you start seeing something like that, I think all bets are off on the whole give grace thing to how you're going to leave or remove yourself if the team is continuing to play poorly.
Yeah.
That's what I started to think.
Well, and I don't disagree with that. I just think, owners are always going to say what Robert Kraft said, right? Like, everyone wants to be competing and trying to win Super Bowls. We look at New England different because of the run they had with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. And so we just assume they should always be in the mix. I think behind closed doors, you're hard-pressed to think that last year wasn't in some ways a debacle. I mean, it was tough watching the film at times. It was tough, I'm sure, for them going back, watching it, thinking, we got to bring in someone who's got more experience calling plays in the NFL. It's just a monumental task. And enter in Bill O'Brien. So, to me, to answer Jonas's question, yeah, a lot hangs on it. And it's not so much that Bill O'Brien's brought in to, save the day or anything. It's the fact that I think Bill Belichick wants to get back to playing better situational football. I mean, people have to understand on the outside, New England is one of the most, and Bill Belichick and what he's done, they just have a different way of going through situations than everyone else. They have such a coordinated game plan and attack for those scenarios, both offensively and defensively. And I'm sure people will take issue with this, but from every coach that I've been involved with that came from the New England tree, and it's Charlie Rice and Romeo Crennel and Eric Mangini and Josh McDaniels. I mean, it's a lot, right? All of them continue to preach the same thing and try to replicate the same thing, and that was every single time you'd come out there for one of those situations, there was different little games within the game that they would try to utilize. Even Brian Dable now, obviously, comes from that New England coaching tree. So you'd have the Kodak call, right? Kodak is you'd come out there, you'd line up on whatever you're going to line up to just to see how they're going to line up to you. And you call a timeout. Like they have all these little different things that they do, whether it's the shifts and the motions and the manner in which you shift in motion and when you do it. It's all specifically designed to get you in the perfect call to execute. And that was just a huge thing that was missing last year, I thought, for them offensively in particular. And so, it's a monumental year for Mac Jones because of the contract situation, being a first-round pick. It's a big year for Bill O'Brien to bring them back to the more of the glory and the better offensive prowess they've had. But for all parts involved, I just think and Bill Belichick and maybe his legacy in trying to, define what that last chapter looks like. I think it's a huge season for everyone involved. It's not just Mac Jones. It's Bill O'Brien, it's Bill Belichick, it's Mac. I mean, they all, to me, are in a pivotal year, at least in regards to a number of different things, whether it's a contract, legacy, or even just getting the Patriots offense to operate efficiently.